Hello students, this is Prakash and today you will study here fifth poem of your book Behave, and the name of the lesson is A Legend of the Northland. So by the title you can understand that it is a story which belongs to the area Northland, that is near to North Pole. Students, this is a ballad, and do you know what a ballad is? A ballad is a song narrating a story in short stanzas. Ballads are a part of folk culture or popular culture and are passed on orally from one generation to the next. A legend of the Northland is a ballad in this way because it is narrating a story of the Northland. So, what is there in the story, that is your poem? This poem narrates the legend of an old lady who angered Saint Peter because of her greed. So, the story tells us about a lady who is greedy, and just because of her greed, she angered Saint Peter. Saints are always called to be calm in nature, but if any saint is angered, then you can feel that the greed would have made it so. So, we will study the poem, read the poem, and then I will explain you. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they can't sleep them through. So, here in the first passage, the place has been described, that is the Northland, and you know very well that the earth is tilted on its axis at the angle of 66 and half. So, what happens? There, nights are long and the days are short because the sun is always slant on that location, and when it is tilted to another side, then what happens? Days are longer and nights are short. But in winters, the nights are longer and days are very short. So, people that they is used here for people who live there cannot sleep them through. Why? Why it is so? Because nights are so long then that for such long hours they cannot sleep. You can sleep for 6 hours, 7 hours, or 8 hours, but for 10 to 12 or 13 or 14 hours you cannot sleep. So the people who live there are not able to sleep throughout the night. Where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledge when it snows, and the children look like bear's cub in their funny furry clothes. You know that the place, such places are covered with snow, and reindeer is an animal who which is found in that areas only, and the animal is attached to the sledges and reindeer carries them away. So where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, means when snow falling is there, and reindeer are supposed to be very swift, they carry sledges very fast, and what happens? The children, they look very funny. Why? Because of their furry clothes. They are wrapped in their furry clothes and they look like bear's cub. They tell them a curious story, and people of that place tell their children a story. And I don't believe it is true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. So, the story is true or not, it is not the question. It doesn't matter that it is true or not, but the story gives us a kind of lesson, and the poet is going to tell us the story, and we will be benefited from that story and we will learn something. What's the story? The next passage tells us, once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching just as he did, you know. So Saint Peter was sent, and he preached to every person the teachings of Jesus, and that's how he taught others and preached others. So it was the time when Saint Peter was living on this earth. He came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the earth. So you know that saints are supposed to eat by begging, means they beg something to someone, and whatever they get they eat that food, and they think that the universe, the whole world is their home. Saints are such in nature. So he reaches at the door of a cottage, and he found that there was a little woman and who was baking cakes on the hearth, that is the place where cakes are baked. And being faint with the fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. So he had been without food throughout the day. Now he found that he could travel nothing more, and he demanded the lady a cake from her store that he may eat and get energetic. Then what happens? She made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too lost to give away. And here the greed of the woman is clearly seen, that she made the dough and then after baked the cake, and after baking she thought that it is too lost to give someone, and greed was there in her mind, and that's why it appeared her a very large cake. Therefore she needed another and still a smaller one, but it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. So she needed another dough and wanted to bake it. But what happened? It was comparatively smaller than the previous one, but what it appeared to her, that it is equally in size as it was the previous one. So she refused the idea of giving the cake to the saint, and then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer. But she couldn't part with that, and the greed was such in high level in her nature that she made a tiny cake. A little dough she took and rolled it totally flat and found that it is also too big to give. And due to her greed, she refused to give that bread also. For she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. Whenever she says that whenever she eats the same cake for herself, that appears to be very small because she is eating them herself. And whenever she wants to give to the saint, it appeared to be very large. Then good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. So, on this behavior of the lady, that she was not intended to give a little piece of cake to the saint, and that's how the saint grew angry, because she was in the grips of the greed. And the hungry Saint Peter was fainting. He was feeling a faint, and the work, the deed which did the woman provoked the saint, and he became very angry. And he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm. As you know very well that God has made us, and God has provided us every kind of resources, every kind of facilities which we enjoying nowadays. Then it is human who has the humanity, and what humanity says, that we should help others, and the woman was not intended to help others, and that's why she didn't give the cake to the saint, because of her greed and because of her inhuman nature. So he says, now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard dry wood. So he cursed the woman that she was not supposed to dwell in the form of human as the animal do. She was supposed to do like that, and he cursed her to become a bird, and such a bird who always suffer from food, that she had always scanty of food. And the bird that you know very well, that is woodpecker, that the bird bores and bores throughout the day in the dry woods, and finds a little food after hard hours of working. So he cursed her to become a bird, that is woodpecker. Then she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. And that happened. Through the chimney she flew away and spoke nothing to anyone, and she became a bird, that is woodpecker. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burnt black as a coal in the flame. The scarf and the scarlet cap which she had at that time, she kept in the next form also, that is in the form of bird also. And that's how you can see the woodpecker, the red uh, uh, the face part of the woodpecker is red, and that's how it is the same, but the rest part is black, and it is supposed to be burnt in the flame of the chimney, and thus the body of the woman became black. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and for food. So the schoolboys who saw her, that the bird lives in the woods and she works very hard for the food, and that's how the story ends. A very greedy woman meets to her end. That is, you have learned the lesson that we are born in the form of human, then we must have the humanity and we must help the others. We must become greedy. Whatever the resources we are enjoying are for others also. So let others also enjoy the same that we have, because we cannot carry it with us to the another world, that is to the heaven. So however you can help the others, how much ever you must do. So now I will tell you more about the poem, that the rhyming scheme and other figure of speeches. So the rhyming scheme is A B C B, A B C B, and next D E F E. So this is the rhyming scheme. As you can see that here few and through are rhyming words, are few them through, these are the rhyming words. So these are supposed to become B, and Northland and winter are different ones. So A B C B. Now the next figure of speech is enjambment, which is abundantly used here. As you can see that in the first paragraph and in the third and fourth line, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. So what is the enjambment? Whenever any punctuation mark is not used in continuation of the lines, then it is enjambment. As you can see that in third and fourth line, in between it no punctuation mark is used for any stop, so enjambment will be there. In the same way, in the third one, the third line and fourth line, and the next one, once when the god Saint Peter lived in the world below. So when the god Saint Peter lived in the world below, here also in between when to below no punctuation mark is used in both of the two lines, then enjambment is there. And in this paragraph also, that here, for she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself are yet too large to give away. So in inverted commas you can see three lines have been covered, so it is also enjambment here. And in the next paragraph also, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke a scent. Enjambment is here. Now, in the starting of the poem, we will see in the first paragraph, you will see that they cannot sleep them through. So, that they and them through. In both of them, both of the pair, alliteration is there. And in the second paragraph, third line, you will find, and the children look like bear's cub. So, comparison is made here, like is used, so simile will be here. And in this paragraph, which is showing in the middle of it, that and baked it thin as a wafer. To send, then what happens? The cake is compared as a wafer, compared to wafer. So simile is also used here. And in the second last paragraph, that is as black as a coal in the flame. So simile is used here. So these are the figure of speeches used in the paragraph. So students, hopefully you will have understood the poem.